Hi there, welcome to this build of a lovely vintage model from 1941. Now this is the Gladiator and we're building this from a great set of plans that you can download from the Outer Zone website, and if you have a look in the description below this video you'll find a link to those plans. Now it's a lovely tip dihedral wing, so it's got a flat section in the middle with wing tips that come up. It's a really broad chord and it's this lovely, and the wings are 67.5-inch wingspan, and it's got this lovely long fuselage. It's a really distinctive model, and it's going to be interesting because it's got such a short nose forward of the CG and yet quite a lot back this way. Anyway, in the last video, which was the first video of this series, we had a look at the wing ribs and pulling together the materials we need to start building the wing. And in this video, I'm going to build the central section of the wing, because I'm going to build the wing in 3 pieces. I'm going to do the central section, and then I'm going to build the 2 wing tips, and we'll join it all together. So as I said, we're going to get this wing central section built today. Right, so we've got all of the parts ready now that we prepared in the last video. We've got the trailing edge, the 1/4 inch by 1 inch. We've got the 1/4 inch square leading edge. Both of these are hard balsa. We've got the spruce spars, and we've got 2 pieces of carbon fibre tube. This is 10mm roll wrapped. This is 8mm protruded. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it in this central section up to the dihedral break to provide this section with a lot more strength, because this is where the most sort of pressure is going to be on this wing, in the root of it, the wing, where it meets the fuselage. And if it's going to break and clap hands, it's most likely, I would think, to happen in that area. So we're going to drill some holes in the ribs. These are the ribs that we made in the last video, just a sandwich technique to get them all identical. We're going to put an 8mm hole in the back there and a 10mm hole in the front, so when we get the ribs in place we can just thread the carbon fibre through. There's actually 4 ribs in here that we don't need to drill because they're in the tip part of the wing, so I'm going to take those out first. So I'm going to do that in a minute. The other thing I've got to do before we set this out on the building board is glue this section together. It's 3 pieces of balsa which essentially bring the wing forward of the cabin. We've got the fuselage that comes down here, and the cabin finishes there with the windshield or the windscreen. And then you have these bits that bring that wing forward, and you can see on this cross section here we've got the windshield, the cabin here, and then we've got this front piece of balsa here, which is this piece, and then we've got these bits that sweep around, these horns if you like, which are these pieces. Now before I glue these together, because I'm going to glue these together before I lay it all out, I just think it would be a lot better to glue this first, and I'm going to just use some 30-minute epoxy on that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just shape the this front block here, because it'll be a lot easier to do it now just with a knife and a plane, which is this front section. But I'm not going to take the bottom bit off because I don't see the point in doing that. It shows it here, but what I'm going to do is just bring it down like that to the front of the cabin, because this undercut here is just going to be providing somewhere for oil to gather and actually to go into the fuselage. So I don't see why that needs to be shaped all the way around. So I'll get that shaped up and then glued, and then we'll start to set this out on the building board. Okay, I've got these holes drilled in all of the rib templates now, ready to accept the carbon fibre strengthening spars. And I've also done this kind of central block that throws the wings, the leading edge, forward of the cabin. And I've done that, just profiled that and sanded this, and it's all looking nice now, and glued together of course. So I'm quite pleased with that. Right, well I've just come in to set the plans out on my cork building board. It's a lovely big flat board that will do the whole fuselage and most of the wings. It won't do the whole wing, it's not that long enough, but that's fine because all I'm going to do now is the central section and then we'll do the tips separately. We've got the right hand side, this is the front and the rear. We've got the right hand wing, but we haven't got the left, so I'm drawing it out. So I'm just using a nice long straight rule to take the spars through, the trailing edge through, and I'll do the leading edge. But it's doing this has actually thrown up a slight issue with the plans and also a slight issue with this. Now this central section here fits on top of the fuselage and the bands are going to come up from the fuselage sides up here and then over to the back. But what I've realised is that this is narrower than the fuselage. It's about 1/4 inch narrow, about 6 mil, something like about 6 mil, something like that, narrower than the fuselage, which I kind of don't like the idea of, because looking at the plans, I think the bands will come up the side of the fuselage and then be forced in where the windscreen is, the windshield is, and to be able to come up around this edge. And I think that's going to end up damaging the windscreen. I don't think that's a very good idea. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this down the centre. I'm going to glue in a bit of 1/4 inch balsa and that will just extend it. Now the way I'm going to do that will be different. This is the grain's going this way, but the piece I glue in, the grain will go that way. But I think that will sand and look okay. It's not something I like doing, but it's a big piece of balsa. It's not going to weaken the wing or anything like that. It's just a little bit of extra work to lengthen that. And I think that will benefit and get a much better attachment with the bands coming around the fuselage sides. But also, I've noticed in measuring this out that this central section here isn't symmetrical, and the distance on this side from the center rib to the first rib is about 6 mil, 1/4 inch, something like that, narrower than on this side. So if we measure that, measure it metric, what have we got? We've got about 39 millimeters. If we measure it on this side, we've got let's just do that again. We've got 39 millimeters. If we measure it on this side, we've got 43, 42 and a half, something like that. So this isn't symmetrical. I want to adjust that. So what I'm doing, you can see I've started to wipe out, Tipex this line out here, so that what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the central rib over this way by just about 4 mil, something like that. And that will fit in a lot better with widening this as well, because at the end of the day, these cap strips here need to finish flush with the edges of this central section. So I think that will work out a lot better. Just something to note. Plans, there's always some problems with the plans, and I'm going to Tipex or white out this line and draw another line the other side. And also I've measured the whole span of the wing, and I think if I extend the wing by just a little bit, it'll actually fit in with the wingspan it's supposed to be a little bit better. So anyway, I'll get on and do that. Right, I'm ready to start setting out now. You can see I've drawn the left wing out, and this goes to the dihedral brake. I've got the spars in. I've extended this by, I don't know, about 4 millimeters, maybe just over, just to balance that out and make that a little bit wider and to fit in better with this this front piece, which is now a little bit wider. You can see I've extended it there, and that will allow the elastic bands to come over on the fuselage unhindered a lot better. Otherwise it would have caused problems, or I'd have had to make the fuselage narrow, which I certainly wasn't going to do. So I think we're ready now to start setting this wing out. I'll get some plastic over this so I don't stick to the plans. And just one comment, I've cut the spars so that they are exactly the right length. I don't normally do this when I'm building. I normally leave them long, pin in the ends and then cut them afterwards. But because spruce is a lot harder, and if I've got ribs on the ends and I want to cut them nice and straight, it's going to be more difficult. And also I'm not going to stick pins in the spruce because it's too hard. So let's get them cut nicely to shape now, and then we don't have to worry about that afterwards. So I'll start to get this set up. Okay, just a quick word about setting out. I'm just starting to set this out now. And so where do we start? We've got to start somewhere. To my mind, we'll start at the back here. We'll get this trailing edge propped up at the front edge with some 1/16, and we'll make sure that it is absolutely dead straight. And we've got that pinned in position. That's not going anywhere now. Now, if we've got that dead straight and we're happy with that, we can then start to put the ribs in. And we know that all the ribs are exactly the same length. So if all the ribs and all the slots are the same, then if that's straight, we're going to end up with a straight spar, we're going to end up with a straight spar here, and we're going to end up with a straight leading edge. Of course, we'll check all this, but if that back starts straight, then everything from then should stay straight. Once we've got it laid out like that, we'll then need to look across the top of the ribs, use a straight edge to make sure that all the ribs are the same level. But we'll have a look at that in a bit. Right, I've got this all laid out now and I'm really happy with the way it's looking. As I said earlier, we pinned down the trailing edge and that is nice and straight. We checked that with the ruler. So because we've got consistent ribs with the slots and the bird mouths, we know that this is going to be all parallel. These spars are going to be parallel to that and the leading edge as well. So it's all going to be square, and we've got pins just at the ends of these spars, just stopping it from sort of going side to side. But you can see that there's no pins or anything holding down the spars or forcing anything into place. Even though the joints are nice and tight and fitting snugly, it's a very relaxed wing. We don't need to put weights on the spars or on the trailing edge to stop a bit lifting up. To my mind, the success to a good wing is to have it relaxed and not under tension when you glue it, because if you've got a piece lifting up and you end up putting a weight on it like this to keep it down and then glue it, it's just going to spring back up. It wants to be relaxed and in the position it feels comfortable in before you glue it, if that makes sense. Now we can check this. We can go to the end of the bench, the wing, and eye along and just check all the ribs are looking really sweet. There's nothing sticking up and out of place. But also what I like doing as well is just putting a ruler on the top and just checking there's no high points, one rib perhaps sticking slightly above because it just hasn't gone down properly. Same with the front here, front spar, we can just check that as well. And that is looking really, really nice, and I'm really pleased with that. I can't wait to get this this sorted. Now I'm just going to remove a little bit of balsa from this front section first, because at the end of the day these blocks here are going to need to be trimmed to follow the contour, this front contour of the rib. So what I've done to mark that up is I've used my small ruler, and I'm using that corner there just to go along and just scratch it where it's going to need to be trimmed eventually. Or I say need to be trimmed eventually, that's not quite right, which I'll explain in a minute. But if we just go along and just scratch it like that, and that will be more or less where it needs to be profiled to. Now I've done that, I've marked that one up very roughly, and I can just see the scratch of the ruler mark there. But we need to be careful because, as I said, it's not quite true that that is the point that we're going to cut at, because and I was just looking for some 1/8 balsa, 1/16 balsa, because we are going to put our cap strips on there up to that. So actually it's going to be 1/16 higher than that line we just scribed. So what I'm going to do is just take off the bulk, and then I will glue that into place. Now we've got our carbon fibre spars, and I haven't cut them to length yet, but we can see, if I've got room here on the bench, these will just, once I've cut them to size, will just slide through really nicely, because all our ribs are identical, trimmed really well. Now I won't push it any further because I'm just dislodging some of the ribs, but that will go through really nicely. But that is going to be a job once we've got the wing glued. Now when I glue the ribs, I'm going to be using a couple of blocks. I'm just going to be putting them lightly like that. I might even do some front and back. Make sure that the rib is absolutely nice and square. I'll also be using a set square to, whoops, lifted it up. Oh well, that's okay. Also be using a set square just to make sure that the ribs are nice and square with the trailing edge. So I think I'm ready to start gluing this now, and I will just go along and glue each rib individually with the blocks, just checking it and checking it's on the line. And I need to check it a little bit more now. I've just lifted it up, but that's fine. It easily goes back down. I'll just check it again. So let's get this thing glued. Right, well, the moment of truth, and this is always an exciting stage in any build, and that is we're going to take the pins out and get this off the building board and actually see whether we've got a lovely straight wing or maybe a little bit of a boomerang, but we'll have a look. So I've glued everything now, all the joints, except for the sides of the end ribs where they meet the spruce spars. I've done the top of the spruce spar but not the sides, and the reason I've omitted the sides is because I'm going to have to cut out a little bit on each rib when I come to do the dihedral brace, and I'm going to have to slot the dihedral braces in. So there's no point in gluing it because it's just going to make my life more difficult if I do. So hopefully, and actually to glue the top, what I've used is thin CA all round, except for the top of these where I used a medium CA, purely because the medium CA won't run. If I put some thin CA on the top, it'll just run down the sides of the spars and glue everything. But the medium won't, so I put a good blob of medium on each one, and then just a little bit of kicker. I've got some kicker in a pot here, and I just dip a needle in and just wipe it on it, and that's enough to get that a nice finish. Right, now I think I'm going to put my glasses on for the final inspection. Hopefully I haven't glued too much of it to the plastic. There we go. This is always a really good stage, like I say, in any build. Oh, that is sweet. So I will try and line this up now with the camera. I'll just move it slowly, but you can hopefully see that this is a lovely straight wing. Oh, that is really nice. So all of those ribs seem to line up nicely, and I don't know whether we can see that. But the next job now is to get the cap strips on the underside, and also we've got to get those carbon fibre rods in. I think what I'm going to do, and I'm going to draw this video to a close now, but it's going to be the next video, is I'm going to do some of the profiling, the gross profiling, while I've got just this small section of wing, and I'm going to get these top cap strips on, and the carbon fibre in, and I might put some really thin, like 1/32 plywood on the end, just where those carbon fibre rods end. But I'll have a think about that, and we'll get on with that in the next video. But in this video, it's great to get that central section done, and you can see from that it's going to be a really exciting wing with these lovely big tip dihedrals. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed seeing the construction, or the kind of the basic construction of the central wing, and I hope you'll come back and see as we more or less finish this off. And I think it's right to get it to quite an advanced stage before we move on to the tips and start joining the tips on, because then it's going to be quite a big unwieldy wing. So if we can get the bulk of it done before then, all the better. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it.